The message from a child. The sun was setting behind the rocky cliffs of Outpost 17, one of the last human stations on the edge of alien territory. The land around the outpost was dry, red, and cracked, silent for years. No one came here anymore. Not after the war. That evening, the silence broke. A young alien girl, no taller than a human's waist, stood at the front gates. Her skin was a soft green-blue color. Her big silver eyes were filled with fear, but also something else. Hope. The guards were confused. Children didn't come here, especially not alone. She spoke in a soft voice. "Please. I must see the human commander." The guards looked at each other. One of them, Lieutenant Sarah, stepped forward. "Where are your parents?" she asked gently. The girl looked down. "My father left many cycles ago, and my mother cries herself to sleep every night." Sarah knelt beside her. "What's your name, little one?" "Ree," the girl said. "Where do you come from?" Ree took a small necklace from around her neck and held it out. Sarah's eyes widened. It was a human military tag. The name on it read, Latin Mason, Earth Defense Force. Sarah stood up quickly. She didn't say a word, just turned and walked. The girl inside. Commander Briggs sat at his desk reading old war reports when the door opened. "Sir," Sarah said, stepping in. "You need to see this." Briggs raised an eyebrow. "Is it urgent?" Instead of answering, Sarah stepped aside. Ree walked in, holding the tag close to her chest. Briggs frowned. "What is this? A child?" She came from Sector 19. Alone. She asked to speak to the commander. Briggs leaned forward. "Why?" Ree took a deep breath. "My mother cries herself to sleep," she said softly. "She says humans stole her happiness. She says she'll never smile again." Briggs was silent. Ree continued. "I came here to find someone. Someone named Late Mason." At the name, Briggs stood up sharply. "Where did you hear that name?" Rye held out the tag. "My mother says he was my father." The room went quiet. Sarah and Briggs exchanged looks. Latin Mason was a name from the past, a soldier lost during the Orion conflict 10 years ago. No one had heard from him since. His record showed him as missing in action. Some thought he had died during a failed retreat. Others believed he ran away, but no one knew he had a child, especially not a child with an alien. Briggs sat back down, slowly. "Tell me more, Ree." The little girl sat in the chair across from him. Her voice was careful, like she had practiced every word. "My mother's name is Sayela. She was a battlefield healer. She helped wounded soldiers, alien and human. She says my father saved her from a bombing. After that, he stayed with her. She says he was kind, brave, and different from the other humans." Briggs listened without interrupting. She said he promised to come back, but he never did. Tears formed in her eyes. "I think she still waits for him. Every night she whispers his name, and then she cries." Sarah put a hand over her mouth. The room felt heavy with emotion. Briggs nodded, slowly. "And what do you want from us?" "I want to know the truth," Ree said. "If he's alive, and I want to meet him. If he's dead, I want my mother to stop waiting. She deserves peace." Briggs took the tag and studied it. "Latin Mason's file is old, but maybe there's something we missed." He turned to Sarah. "Open the archive logs, look into his last known location, and call a scout team." Sarah nodded and left. Ree sat quietly, her feet swinging above the floor. After a few minutes, she asked, "Do humans forget the people they love?" Briggs looked at her. "No," he said. "But sometimes we're forced to leave them behind." Later that night, Briggs looked at Lieutenant Mason's war file. The details were strange. Mason was last seen near a restricted zone, Sector 19. He had sent one final message, but it was corrupted. No one followed up. No one searched deeper. Until now. Briggs tapped the screen. Time to fix an old mistake. Outside the window, Ree stood alone staring at the stars. She didn't know if her father was alive. She didn't know if humans would help. But tonight was the first night her mother wouldn't cry alone. Because Ree had found something stronger than sadness. She had found hope. The forgotten soldier. The next morning, the outpost was busy. Commander Briggs had called in a scout unit. 3 trained humans prepared their gear, maps, scanners, and desert bikes. The mission was clear. Travel to Sector 19, locate signs of Lutern Mason, and verify the alien child's story. Sarah stood beside the little girl, Ree, who now wore a warm jacket and boots. She looked small, but her eyes were sharp. Briggs stepped forward. Ree, this trip is dangerous. Your mother lives in a zone that's off limits to most humans. Are you sure you want to go back? Ree nodded. She doesn't know I left, but she will forgive me if I bring back the truth. Briggs looked at Sarah. You'll go with her. Take only one team. Keep it quiet. Sarah saluted. Understood. As the desert bikes roared across the cracked land, Ree sat in front of Sarah, gripping the handlebars. The wind blew through her hair. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Sarah kept thinking about the night before, a human soldier and an alien healer, a child born of both, something the Council would never allow. After 3 hours of travel, the red cliffs opened into a quiet valley. Strange. Trees grew near the rocks and colorful flowers glowed under the sunlight. This was not war-torn land. It was peaceful. Untouched. Ree pointed. There. Sarah stopped the bike. The others spread out, watching the edges of the cliffs. A small stone house stood ahead, built with alien tools. A garden grew in front of it. Smoke rose from the chimney. Ree walked ahead. A woman stepped out. Tall, graceful, skin a soft pearl blue. Long white hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes froze when she saw the humans. Then they filled with fear. Ree, she shouted, rushing forward and grabbing the child. Where were you? Why are there humans here? Ree looked up. Mother, they came to help. They know his name. They know Father's name. The woman froze. Mason. Sarah stepped forward slowly. You must be Sayela. Sayela nodded, holding her daughter close. We don't mean harm, Sarah said. We just want answers. About Lutern Mason. About the war. About why no one came back for you. Sayela stared at her, then turned and walked into the house. Come, she said softly. Inside, the house was clean, quiet, and filled with strange tools. Alien healing equipment sat beside human containers. A photo rested on a shelf. Sayela standing, beside a man in a torn Earth uniform. He had kind eyes, strong arms, a bright smile. Sarah picked it up. This is him? Sayela nodded. That was the last day he smiled, she said. After that, he got quiet. He said the humans were watching him, listening. He said they wouldn't let us be together. She opened a small box and pulled out a bundle of old paper, letters written in English. Ree whispered, These are his letters. I never learned your language, but Mother, she read them every night. Sarah took one and opened it. Sayela, I want to marry you. I don't care what the command says, but if they find out, they'll erase me. I need to disappear for a while. Trust me, I'll come back, I promise. Sarah's eyes widened. Why didn't we get these? She said. Because he never sent them, Sayela replied. He hid them here. Maybe he was afraid. Maybe he already knew they wouldn't reach anyone. Another soldier from Sarah's team spoke up. Lieutenant, I found something strange outside. An old human drop beacon, cracked, but readable. Sarah and Sayela rushed out. The beacon lay broken in the grass. She scanned it. The message inside was clear. Mason, status, MIA, location, restricted, do not retrieve. Sarah frowned. Do not retrieve? Why would the military say that? She tapped deeper into the old file. Code 47S, emotional conflict with alien species. Subject, under review for removal. Her face turned pale. They tried to erase him, she whispered. Sayela stared at the beacon. I told him it wasn't safe, she said. But he believed love could survive anything. Ree touched her mother's hand. Sarah looked up. We're going to find out what really happened, she said. If Mason's alive, we'll bring him home. If not, then we'll clear his name. Sayla didn't speak for a while, then she said, there's a place he said he'd run to if it all went wrong. I never went. I was too afraid. Sarah stepped forward. Then let's go together. That night, Sayela sat beside her daughter, whispering old songs. Ree held the dog tag close to her chest. She didn't cry. Not tonight, because for the first time, someone believed her and the journey to find the truth had just begun. The journey to her pain. The next morning, the group moved early. The sky was still pink and the air was cool as they prepared for their journey. Sarah checked her gear. Her soldiers were quiet but ready. Ree sat on the back of the transport, holding her father's tag close to her heart. She didn't speak much, but her eyes never stopped searching the horizon. Sayela stood a few steps away from them, her arms crossed. She looked strong on the outside, but Sarah could see the pain in her eyes, the kind of pain that time doesn't heal. Sarah walked over. Are you sure this is the way? Sayela nodded slowly. He called it the far edge. He said if he ever had to disappear, that's where he would go. What's there? Sayela looked down. Only rocks, no water, no homes, just silence. Sarah frowned. Then why would he go there? Sayela looked up, her voice soft. Because that's where no one would look. The journey took hours. The transport climbed over red hills and crossed dry rivers. Along the way they passed broken machines, remnants from the war, old Zalari tanks, burnt human bikes, the ghosts of battle. Ree pointed at a burned tree. My mother told me that's where she almost died. Sarah turned to Sayela, surprised. I was trapped there, Sayela said, bleeding. I thought it was the end. But then he came. You mean Mason? Sayela nodded. He wasn't ordered to help. He could have left me. But he picked me up and carried me for 5 kilometers. When the med team asked why, he said, because no one else would. Sarah smiled sadly. That sounds like him. They kept moving. As the sun began to fall, they reached a narrow canyon. Sharp rocks rose on both sides. The place felt hidden, forgotten. This is it, Sayela whispered. He called it the Echo Hollow. Sarah raised her hand and the team moved slowly. Scanners showed no movement, no signals. But something was here. A cave, covered by a sheet of old metal, rusted, human-made. Sarah stepped forward and pulled it aside. Inside, the air was cool, dusty, and on the wall, a symbol, the Earth Defense Force logo, and beneath it, M+S, carved into the stone. Sarah's breath caught. He was here. Ree walked in, touching the letters on the wall. Mother, he didn't forget us. Sayela stepped deeper inside. A small camp still remained. Old gear, empty rations, a broken radio. A small box sat in the corner. Sayela opened it. Inside were pictures, one of her smiling, another of Ree as a baby, and a final one, of all 3 together. Her hands shook. She sat on the ground and began to cry, quietly, not because of pain, but because after all these years, she was no longer alone. Sarah sat beside her. He wanted to come back, Sarah said, but something stopped him. Sayela nodded. He always said the council would erase him if they found out about me. About her. Sarah picked up the broken radio. Maybe he tried to call. One of the soldiers scanned the cave. Lieutenant, you need to see this. Sarah followed him outside the cave. Not far from the rocks, they found a grave, a stone marked with human letters. Letter Mason, a soldier, a father, a flame that never faded. Sarah stared at the name. No, she whispered. Sayla came behind her. Her legs gave out. She dropped to her knees and wept. Ree stood beside the stone, silent. She placed her father's tag on top of it. I came to find him, she whispered. And I did. That night a fire burned outside the cave. Sayla sat beside the flames, holding her daughter close. Her tears had stopped, but her eyes still shimmered. Sarah looked at the grave, then at the sky. We'll take his story home, she said. He won't be forgotten again. Ree looked at her. Can I stay here for one more night? She asked. Sarah smiled. As long as you want. And as the stars came out for the first time in many years, Sayla didn't cry herself to sleep. She had her answers. She had her child, and above all, she still had love. The hidden truth. The next morning, the desert air was quiet. Birds flew low. The rock still held the cold of night. Sarah stood at the edge of the canyon, staring at Lieutenant Mason's grave. Her team packed their gear, but her mind was restless. Something about all this felt unfinished. Why would Mason dig his own grave? Why? Was it marked so clearly? And most important, who buried him? She walked back into the cave and picked up the broken radio again. Her fingers brushed over the damaged panel. It had been smashed on purpose. Not by time, by force. She turned to Sayla. Did Mason ever talk about someone watching him? Sayla nodded. He said during the last days of the war something changed. His orders stopped making sense. His messages to Earth went missing. He said someone didn't want him to return. Sarah turned sharply. That's what I thought. She opened her wrist device and tapped into the council archives. Using an old forgotten access code, encrypted logs appeared, classified war records, Lieutenant Mason, status, emotional violation case, subject, blacklisted. She scrolled further. Subject Lieutenant Mason showed repeated unauthorized interaction with non-human female species. Bond suspected. Transfer request denied. Clearance revoked. Final order. Isolate subject. Seal off retrieval. Sarah's face turned pale. They didn't just leave him behind, she whispered. They wanted him to disappear. Outside, Ree picked wildflowers near her father's grave. She placed them gently over the stone. Her small fingers touched the name again. Then she saw something odd. A piece of the grave's corner was chipped, and beneath the stone, metal glinted. She called out. Lieutenant Sarah. Sarah ran over. What is it? Ree pointed. The grave. It's not just rock. Sarah brushed off the dirt and lifted the corner. Beneath the fake stone was a sealed container, military grade. She opened. Inside was a memory chip, old Earth-made, and beside it, a small note written in human handwriting. If you're reading this, I didn't make it out. Not because I gave up, but because I chose to protect them. I learned too much. They were never going to let us live. Tell my daughter I loved her. Tell Sayla I never stopped trying. Sarah held the note close to her chest. I'm sorry, Mason, she whispered. They tried to erase you, but we'll make it right. Later that day, they powered up the ship's transmitter. Sarah placed the chip inside and downloaded the files. A video played. Mason's face appeared on the screen. His voice was calm, but tired. This is Lieutenant David Mason recording final log. If you're hearing this, the council has silenced me. They fear what I know. They don't want peace. They want control. I saw things, orders to abandon wounded, lies told to both sides. They didn't want humans and Zalari to fall in love. They said it would weaken the bloodline, that it would confuse the future. But I didn't care. I loved her. And if that means they erase me, then so be it. But not her. Not our child. She deserves to live. To know I tried. The video ended. The team stood in silence. Sayla wiped a tear from her eye. Ree didn't cry. She stood straight and proud. My father was brave, she said. Sarah nodded. Yes, and now we make the truth known. She sent the video through military frequencies. A few hours later, an alert arrived. Council war records unlocked. Video message spread. Across 7 colonies, the truth was out. The council couldn't hide anymore. Mason's name was being spoken again for the first time in 10 years, not as a traitor, but as a hero. That night, Sayla sat beside the fire again, but this time her face was calm. No tears, no sadness. Sarah joined her. "We're bringing you both back to Earth. You'll be protected." Sayla smiled weakly. "I never thought I'd step on human land." "You won't be alone," Sarah said. "Your daughter is part of us too." Across the fire, Ree looked up at the stars. She didn't speak, but in her small heart, a new feeling had grown. Pride. The search for the father. The truth was out. To Mason's final message had spread across colonies. His name was no longer hidden. Soldiers across the galaxy were asking questions. Why was a hero left behind? Why did the council lie at Outpost? 17. Sarah watched the growing list of messages on her console. Words of support, demands for answers. Some even called for justice. But one message stood out. It was short. "You're looking in the wrong place. He's not in the ground." It came from an unregistered code. No location, no name. Sarah read it again and again. Then she stood up and ran outside. Ree sat near her father's grave, drawing pictures in the dirt with a stick. Sayla stood close by, her hands resting gently on the girl's shoulders. Sarah knelt beside them. "We may have made a mistake," she said. Sayla frowned. "What do you mean?" Sarah showed her the message. Sayla's eyes narrowed. "Not in the ground?" Ree looked up. "You mean he's not dead?" Sarah didn't answer. She turned to her team. "We're heading back to Central Base. I want the prisoner logs for the last 10 years. All secret transfers. I think Mason didn't die. I think he was taken." Later that day, Sarah's ship reached a military archive center floating above a mining moon. She entered with high-level clearance. Inside the cold data hall, she connected her access code to the wartime prison records. She searched the name, David Mason. At first, nothing. But then, match found name, D. Mason. Status, transported. Location, facility 9X. Black site, decommissioned reason. Violation of interspecies emotional conduct. Final record. Subject removed for high-risk containment. Sarah's hands froze. He was taken, not killed. Back on Zalari 4, Sarah gathered her team and Sayla. "Mason was never buried," she said. "His death was staged. He was moved to a black site. One we thought was shut down." Sayla stepped forward. "Then we're going to find him." Ree grabbed her mother's hand. "We have to." Sarah looked around. "This mission won't be official. If we're caught, they'll call us traitors." "I don't care," Sayla said. "He's my mate, my daughter's father. He gave everything to protect us." Sarah nodded. "Then we leave tonight." The journey to Facility 9X was long and dangerous. The prison was located in a dead zone. No signals, no lights, and no rescue. Surrounded by asteroid fields and old space mines, it was once used to hide prisoners that even the council was afraid to mention. When the ship arrived, the structure floated like a ghost, cold, silent, and cracked in places. Sarah turned to the others. "If Mason is still inside, he may not even know who he is anymore." Ree looked straight ahead. "He'll know me." The door creaked open. Inside, it was dark. Broken lights flickered. The air smelled like dust and chemicals. Bodies of machines and guards lay rusted in corners. But one cell still had power. A flickering blue field blocked the door. Behind it, a man sat against the wall. Beard, pale skin, thin frame, but his eyes green and sharp. Sarah stepped forward. "Let Mason?" The man looked up. Sayla stepped into the light. He gasped. "Sayla?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Yes. I thought you were dead." She ran to the barrier. He stood, slowly. They told me you left me. That Ree never survived. Ree pushed past the others and stood in front of him. Father. His mouth dropped open. His legs shook. No. It can't be. She touched the glass. The glyph on her necklace lit up, just like the one he gave her long ago. Tears ran down his face. You're real. Sarah turned to the console. I'm taking this barrier down. No, shouted a voice from the shadows. A council officer stepped out, weapon ready. You don't understand. If you release him, everything we buried will return. Sarah raised her blaster. Then maybe it should. She fired. The officer dropped. The barrier fell, and Mason, finally free, stepped out. He took Sayela's hand. He touched Ree's face, and, for the first time in a decade, he smiled. That night, as the ship left the black site and flew into safe space, Mason held his daughter in his arms. You found me, he whispered. She nodded. I told them. My mother cries herself to sleep. He looked at Sayela. She won't anymore. And the stars outside shined brighter than they ever had. The reunion under fire. The ship moved fast through the dark side of space, avoiding known council routes. Inside, the air was filled with quiet tension. Mason sat near a small window, holding his daughter Ree in his arms. She had fallen asleep on his chest. Sayela sat close beside them, never letting go of his hand. 10 years apart. 10 years stolen. Now they were a family again. But Sarah knew the danger wasn't over. She stood in the command room, staring at the blinking red light on the dashboard. A warning. They were being tracked. Far away, deep inside the council tower, alarms blared. A voice echoed through the chamber. Unauthorized extraction confirmed. Prisoner Mason escaped, accompanied by alien female and hybrid child. Emergency force authorized. High officers stood from their chairs. One of them slammed a fist on the table. We buried this for a reason. If the public sees them together, it's over, another hissed. Then end them before they arrive. Back on the ship, Sarah gathered. The team. We've got company, she said. 2 warships and fast ones. Mason stood. We can't outrun them? Not with this ship, Sarah said. We either hide or fight. Sayela stepped forward. If they catch us, they'll take Ree. They'll silence us all. Mason nodded. Then we fight. Sarah gave orders fast. Seal the control room, charge the shields, and prepare the bow decoys. The ship began to shake. Lights flickered. The chase had begun. Minutes later, the enemy ships caught up. Lasers hit the shields. Sirens screamed. Ree woke up and grabbed her father's arm. What's happening? He picked her up and looked her in the eyes. Listen to me. You are strong. Just like your mother. Just like me. No matter what happens, never be afraid. The blast doors opened. 2 council drones broke inside. Sayela jumped into action, swinging a plasma spear. 1 drone fell. Mason grabbed a blaster and fired at the other. Smoke filled the hallway. Red lights blinked. Screams echoed. Sarah called from the bridge. We've got 1 shot. Get them to the escape pod. Sayela grabbed Ree's hand. We go together. No, Mason said. I'll hold them off. You go first. Sayela shook her head. I didn't wait 10 years to leave you again. Ree cried out, don't leave. Mason knelt in front of her. Then stay behind me. They ran together, blasts flying past them, until they reached the pod bay. Sarah arrived with a backup team. Cover them. She hit the control panel. Launching in 10 seconds. Suddenly, a council trooper landed on the platform, gun raised. Stop right there. The child belongs to us. Ree stepped forward, and for the first time she spoke with power. No, I belong with them. The necklace around her neck glowed. Wave of energy burst from her chest. The trooper was thrown across the bay. Everyone froze. Ree looked down at her hands, glowing softly. Mason smiled. You really are our daughter. Sarah hit the launch button. The pod shot out of the ship, flying toward neutral space. Sarah and her team stayed behind, locking the ship into a wild spin, crashing it into the enemy fleet. Hours later, on a peaceful medical station in free territory, the pod landed. Doctors rushed in. Sayela held Rii close. Mason walked beside them, quiet, but smiling. They were safe. For now. Across the galaxy, news spread fast. Human soldier and alien healer found alive. Council lies exposed. Hybrid child displays unknown power. Public demands answers. And deep inside the council tower, the leaders sat in silence. They had failed. The bond they tried to erase had survived. That night, in the soft light of the healing room, Mason looked at his wife and daughter. "No more running," he said. Sayla smiled. "No more crying. And, Ree," she whispered to herself, "we're finally home. A home rebuilt." Weeks passed. The warships were gone. The fear was fading. And the galaxy was finally listening. Ree sat on a soft bench outside the recovery center. Birds sang above her. A breeze moved through the trees. For the first time in her young life, there was peace in the air. Her mother, Sayla, sat beside her, quietly watching the sun rise. Her hand gently brushed Ree's hair. "You've been very brave," she whispered. Ree looked up. "I wasn't brave alone. I had you. I had him." Behind them, Mason stepped out of the building, a fresh bandage on his shoulder. He walked slowly, still healing, but stronger every day. "Morning," he said, smiling. Ree jumped up and ran. To him, he lifted her into his arms, holding her tight. "I had a dream," she said. "You were in it, but this time I didn't wake up crying." He kissed her forehead. "That's because I'm not going anywhere anymore." Inside the main station, Sarah stood before a large screen. News channels from Earth and alien colonies repeated the same story. Council secrets revealed prisoner Mason was never dead. Hybrid child's voice sparks new laws for mixed families. Peace talks begin, led by the family once marked for erasure. Council leaders had been forced to resign. New voices were rising, leaders who believed in unity, not fear. Sarah turned off the screen and looked at Mason and Sayla as they entered. "You've started something bigger than just freedom," she said. "People are watching, listening." Mason nodded. "Then let's give them something worth believing in." Weeks later, Earth's leaders invited them all to a public hearing. Sayla stood before thousands, Solari and humans together, her voice calm, steady. "My mate was not a traitor. He was a protector. He gave up everything to shield a child and a truth that could have brought hope. I ask you now, will we hide love or honor it?" The crowd stood and cheered. Ree's eyes sparkled as she stood between her parents. For the first time, she felt proud of her name and her story. A new law passed across 10 colonies. No species shall be punished for love. All hybrid children shall be protected. Truth shall not be erased by fear. 1 month later, Mason, Sayela, and Ree stood on the edge of a new home, on a peaceful moon near Earth. It was green with rivers and flowers, a place untouched by war. "Do you like it?" Mason asked. Ree smiled wide. "It's perfect." They built a small house together, stone by stone, with their own hands. At night, they sat outside under the stars. Ree drew pictures of spaceships and flowers. Mason read stories from Earth. Sayela taught Ree how to mix healing dust. There was no war, no hiding, no fear, only peace, only family. One evening, Sarah visited. She brought a small gift, a frame with their family photo inside. "I thought this should be the first thing on your new wall," she said. Mason hugged her. "Thank you for everything." Sarah smiled. "Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Tell your story," she said, "so no one ever forgets." Sayela nodded. "We will." And so they did. Years later, children across Earth and Solari planets grew up hearing about the little girl who carried her father's dog tag, and the mother who cried herself to sleep waiting. They heard how a human, lost and betrayed, never gave up, and how love, stronger than any war, rebuilt what the galaxy tried to destroy. And she never had to whisper in sadness again. Because her mother smiled now, every night, and her father's arms were always near. Together, they were home. Forever.